We have in this area here, if we can move to this 500, 600 year mark, we have Visigoths and Vandals who have come down and plundered this land. They are just living and just abusing the people in this area, constantly just raiding them and stealing from them. And what happens is that word here gets to the people here that in Morocco and in Africa, that Spain is a very interesting place and that it has land there. They already know this because they're there, but in 710, Tarif, Tarif, is sent across to look at the prospects of going into Spain. He comes back down, and in 711, he comes back, he speaks to his general Tariq, and in 711, Tariq and groups of Africans with some Arab translators move across and take Spain. And for the next couple centuries, battles ensue where Moors are literally going across this area into France and even impacting other parts of Europe, but not in large numbers. What's interesting is that we see that by the 1200s, we see Africans coming back. And again, a lot of this has to be researched. This is not written in stone. But what we find is that Al Andalusia, or Moorish Spain, is bounded by certain things. And again, I encourage you, in The Moors in Spain is where Dr. Stanley Lane Poole talks about the boundaries of what would become the African Europe. And what he looks at is he looks at what is known as the northern boundaries is what is known as the Montañas or Sierra de Guadarrama, in this area right here, going across to what is known as Coimbra. That's the northern boundaries of Al Andalusia. And then they use what is known as the Ebro River to be their northeast boundary. And they come down the coast, across all this area here, come across, and that becomes Moorish Spain. Right there. This is Moorish, this is Spain. All of this is what would be considered Spain, let's say. You see? Now, here would be the dismantling. Aragon, Castile, Ferdinand and Isabella, they marry and then come down into Spain, come down where the Moors are. Now, why is it like this? Why would these mighty Moors travel so far through Europe and then come down and settle here? Europeans will tell you that it's because of Charles Martel, who was a relative of Charlemagne, who was a warrior, and he was quite a warrior. Charles Martel, no question, he was a fantastic warrior, there's no question. Didn't have morals, but he was quite a warrior. But the key is that when you look at the topography, the land of Europe and Spain, you'll come to realize that here would be most natural why you would have this like that. Look at these mountains. See, this is what the relief map does. It allows you to see, here's the river, there's the Ebro. At the same time, here are the mountains. These mountains that are in flat form, these are the mountains right here. You see? So you could see easily. These are this is a river right here. This is a valley. This was very fertile. This is where a lot of the different kinds of the olives, the Valencia oranges are not Spanish. They came from Africa. All kinds of fruit and vegetables that we today think come from Spain, the olive oils and all of this, they come directly out of the African impact, the Moorish impact on Spain. And so throughout all of this area here, you have, and you can see why the mountains, because these become boundaries. These mountains down here, these mountains are known as Sierra Morena, Black Mountains. And more, of course, Morena Moor, of course, comes from the concept of black. But this is what eventually, and you can see why. There's a natural reason why this would become a very important area. And that is because this is where fruits and vegetables grow. When you get up into this area here, this mountainous area here, all this area here, you can't grow too much here. It's very cold, very damp. When you get down out these mountains, it's beautiful. They describe the weather here in its greatest times as wonderful. Why you could grow things. So actually, the reasons why Africans, they say Africans retreated. Africans did not retreat to this area. This was the area that was reminiscent of home. And who would want to live in the cold and in the mountains and in the damp? Why would you want to live in a place you can't grow the kinds of things that you can grow in here? So it's important that here and in Italy, look at the olive oil. Everything that Spain is known for, Italy is known for. Grapes, wine, champagne, the Toledo, Wilkinson, razors, swords, steel making, all comes out of the Moorish impact in Spain. So this area here eventually becomes the final piece for the Moors. From 710 until 1492, Africans rule this part of the world and bring civilization to this part of the world.
What are some of the things?
Well, for one thing, in some of the areas that they bring hot and cold running water. One of the most important things that they brought a number of things, but one thing they brought was corral, where they taught Europeans how to put animals in corrals instead of having them run through their homes. That's why we have chicken pox today. Because Europeans used to have chickens running in and out of their homes. Africans say, you don't have animals in your home. Animals stay outside. They're in a corral or they're in a chicken coop. But that's where animals belong. And so the Moors brought the concept of separating humans from animals. They also brought ideas of building. There was actually a city in Cordova that ran for miles, lit by lights, lamps. So this is some of the things. They brought all sorts of different kinds of technology to this part of the world where Europe for the first time began to eat foods that they never ate before, to see people that they never saw before, to learn languages they never knew existed. But most importantly, there were pathways of the world that they learned through the Moors. These same paths that the Moors took to leave this part of the world were the same roads that the Europeans took to conquer it.
Before the universities, talk about what they taught in those universities and how that impacted Europe.
One of the keys that they taught was that they broke knowledge up into different areas. For instance, in our schools today, when we study math in high school, we study algebra, which by the way is Moor. That's what the Moor brought. Algebra. Algebra is the manipulation of numbers. They brought algebra, and then you study geometry, and then you study trigonometry. What they brought was a sequence of knowledge that one built on the other. In other words, you can't study algebra and then trigonometry, because the principles of geometry lead you to understand trigonometry. When you understand the sequence from algebra to geometry to trigonometry, it then allows you to calculate numbers, which then takes you to the differentiations of the calculuses that you study. Because calculus basically means calculation, but it means manipulation of numbers, which shows you the differentiation and the other kinds of things that you do in math. The Moors brought this into Europe. Every Gothic cathedral that you see is built on the premise of how Moors built the Alhambra and the other kinds of structures in Africa.